On 25th August, Somalia saw a big political shift after the federal government and some members of the opposition reached an agreement affecting the electoral process. Key points remain unresolved, including the amendment to the Chapter 4 of the Constitution. We are addressing these questions to the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, who's also the chair of the Technical Committee of Dialogue, Hassan Maalim, to address the agreements and the next steps. As the chair of the Technical Committee for the Government-Opposition Dialogues, how was the committee formed? What mandates was it given? And how have you managed the discussions?
Zemzem, thank you, and thanks Dawan Africa. And it's a pleasure, and I'm pleased to sit with you to have a conversation, an interview with you over the discussions that has been led by the committee, as you have mentioned it, that has resulted in the conclusion of that political agreement. It was not an easy job, and it is and I think it is a new president, something quite novel and new to Somalia, and to lead and organize such processes, which I believe has been successful. Our task was to facilitate and bring together on the technical matters the opposition and also at large the Somali public, which were all interested in having a say in their future and their destiny, mainly on the constitutional issues and what has resulted from there on, namely the three acts, electoral acts that has resulted from there. So our mandate was limited only to facilitate and to bring together the parties, which I'm sure now has come to fruition, to an agreement that we can move forward with regard to the way forward for Somalia. It's a breakthrough that has been achieved by all, and it has been a win-win, which, unlike the past practices, it was the common thing was about I win, you lose, which is the zero-sum game, which has resulted for the loss of Somalia and for the loss of the Somali nation, for the Somali national interests.
Okay, back to the post-25th August agreement. Presidential and parliamentary elections, the dialogue ended with an agreement in which part of the opposition signed on with the government while others held back, producing 9 key points, including that the parliament will elect the president. If the parliament elects the president, where does that leave the promised one person, one vote system, and how will the president ultimately be elected?
And you're right, Zemzem. There were 9 points that has been agreed upon. It has been very tenuous. I mean, the discussion it was not very easy. But fortunately, we came, as you said, to an agreement, to a resolution, a political settlement, and as you said, and now instead of the people electing and choosing their president directly by one person, one vote, now their representatives in parliament on their behalf will elect the president. And yes, that's what's going to happen. And I have made some other statements today with regard to this. We thought it was better for Somalia, and the president, which is the highest office in the land, who is also the head of the state of Somalia, to be elected by the people and at large. But some people, they have thought otherwise, and they wanted to maintain the status quo, which is to elect the president by parliament. But what's now different, qualitatively different, and significantly different, is the fact that the president now is not elected by parliament, but a parliament elected by the people themselves. They will no longer be elected by some other forms, like in the past. And the promise of one person, one vote stays the same. And this is now the representatives of the people in parliament, in both houses, will elect the president. That is the agreement we have signed and we have concluded a couple of days ago. And this is going to be an organized politics, and the political process is organized right now, instead of the individual or his clan vying or competing for offices, for the seats. Now it will be the parties who will be organizing the competition and the contest. It will be in the political programs instead of the individualist whims. And so it's an improvement of what we had in the past, but we have a long way to go.
Going to the electoral law and political parties, Somalia's electoral process is currently guided by 3 key laws: the Independent National Electoral and Boundaries Commission Establishment Bill, the Political Association and Party Bill, and the National Electoral Law, which together introduced the principle of one person, one vote. But given that the federal parliament will once again elect the president, should changes be expected to those 3 laws?
Of course, but they will be minor changes. There will be minor changes, because the fact is only the president will be elected instead of the people. Now will be elected by parliament. So that means a small change there, and also the 3 parties, which was the limitations we had in the three bills you have just described. Now it will be a multi-party system on the 10% threshold. Those parties that gain or achieve the 10% threshold will be represented in parliament as a national political parties. That is the change that will happen.
Okay, on to our last question. Federal member states and opposition engagements. Some members of the National Salvation Forum and some federal member states such as Puntland and Jubaland have kept their distance from this process. What steps are being taken to ensure their participation?
The dialogue is open, and the government has shown willingness to sit and also to compromise. And as we have been humbly demonstrated in the last agreement that we had a couple of days ago. So it's up to these parties or people you have just mentioned it, them to join and sit with us, and then we can resolve the issues at hand. But if they are not willing to do that, we are not able to bring them, and we cannot, unfortunately, have an agreement with them. So there must be a will on their part, as there is a willingness on the part of the government. What I'm saying is, it is incumbent upon them to come and sit. One of them has reneged on his promises and agreements he made with the government, and he just needs to come back and implement what he has agreed to. That is the former Jubaland president. The other, as you said, has not been willing to engage. We encourage him to come and sit and negotiate.